right. Good evening, everybody. Happy September 12th. We are well into the swing of things with school here this year, rocking and rolling. So thank you again for being available for our board meeting tonight and joining us. So just making sure everybody is getting in and getting settled. And most of us are here at school, and then we have a few people, looks like AJ's online with us. So again, I'm always happy to have everybody join in. We set these meetings up so you can come on Zoom or you can join us here at the school. So we will go ahead and I'll add Lachey in here and do a quick rundown of the agenda for tonight. So let's see what we've got. We have, of course, always opportunity for public comment. We have had 2 meetings since the last time we approved minutes. So August 15th, our regular monthly meeting, and then August 30th, which was a very quick meeting, special topic meeting. So those are out there for your review. We do have a vote tonight for Mr. Phillips Galena. Hi. I'm looking at you. So yes, we want to vote on Philip's term extension. So very exciting. So that is something that we can do. And then we'll hear from Heather and all of her updates that she has to share, and Kathy and Jared chiming in. And I know some of you may be on, given we noted the topic tonight. What we're trying to do is be very clear about the topics for our meetings for this year. So we have a schedule by which we have set out presentations where we are inviting teachers to participate and staff. So we are excited to have our assistant principals for primary here with us, and they will be sharing a presentation. So those of you who are interested in that, please stick around and enjoy that part of the meeting tonight. As part of that, we'll also be discussing a few things on the communication front. I know we've had some wordsmith committee activity that's been exciting, so we'll touch on that. And most of you have probably seen that there are now the Big Rock goals, which are very exciting. We'll be touching on those. And then our usual, so we'll go on to Philip with finance, Sarah with PTO, and anything from a committee's perspective. And Stacy will wrap us up. Sound okay?
Great. Yep.
All right. So let's go ahead. Again, for those of you joining us online, with regards to our agenda, you can find it on board docs. So we announce our meetings via Parent Square. They're also posted on our school calendar. And you can follow them along on board docs. We also make sure to post our minutes out there. Again, as I mentioned, we are trying to be very clear about the topics of our board meetings and the agenda items so that you can see clearly if there's anything you'd like to join in on. Also from this perspective with public comment, anything that you might like to make a public comment about pertaining to tonight's agenda. So with that in mind, getting a couple more folks in here. We will open up for public comment. Again, the way this works, you have 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes to make a comment. It is not necessarily a Q&A period. It is more of a comment period. So we're happy to take those comments here. For any of you who are online who have a comment, if you want to raise your hand or type your name in the chat, that'll be the easiest way for us to know that you have something to share. So we will pause and see if there's any public comment. Okay. Quiet group tonight.
There's nothing big going on in the agenda.
Okay, all right, no big, yeah, not a lot of votes tonight, as you'll see. So okay, we will move right along then. So our usual votes up front are meeting minutes. So I would like to comment through chat. I don't know if we accept comments through chat. We would need them to be
Yeah,
public.
we can come on and use the mic.
Jennifer, can you go ahead and share your comment with us out loud? Jennifer, are you able to? Oh, you don't have a mic next time. Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, I'll be quiet for one more minute.
Is she writing it? So she's gonna do it next time.
She's messaging me, so I
We
guess.
can accept it via email, right? So we
Yeah,
have it in public record, but
Absolutely.
Can she email
does
it to
chat count as
me?
public record?
Oh, well, nobody else is seeing it, but. So,
Kevin, does it pass muster?
yeah.
She says, thank you. I'll wait till next meeting.
Or you could read it out loud.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I can read comments out loud. Those are accepted via email prior to the meeting.
Sure.
Yep, yep, not anonymous. Okay, sounds like she's okay to wait. So,
Okay.
okay, all right. So, headed back onto the meeting minutes, August 15th. Last month.
Yep.
Anything there that we want to add a change, update?
Nope. Looks good to me.
May I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the August 15th minutes as recorded. All in favor?
Marissa seconded.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Same with August 30th. Pretty brief set of minutes there,
Pretty simple.
since that was a special topic meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the special topic minutes as recorded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion.
Okay. All right, Philip, here it is. We would love to have you continue with us on the board for more time.
I when you sent that message, I was like, oh gosh, it's snuck up on me. So I was like, I know I don't have 3 more years in me on the board, but I definitely don't want to leave you hanging on the finance side. So I don't know what's the right aspect on that. And, you know, I find being on the board, it's like, oh, where's the exit point? And you're like, yeah, things are going easy. We'll stay on. And then things aren't going easy. And then you're like, oh gosh, well, I can't leave now. And then you cycle back. So I was like, well, I don't want to be like, yeah, sign me up for 3 more years. And then find myself doing 3 full years. So that said, I don't know. I guess I'm clearly saying, don't sign me up for 3 more years. I don't know if you want to say, well, we're going to rubber stamp you for 3 years, but with me saying, I'm going to put a 6 months in there, we'll get things stabilized. Or if it's easier to say, well, we'll make a finance committee and put a new treasurer in place. I don't know which one's the, you know, in some ways that could be beneficial to have a new treasurer in all the conversations. You're kind of setting up shop overall. I don't want to downplay what the accounting is, but at the same time, the business structure on the back end, it's a small business. There's a lot going on, but there's not cost. So it's kind of what I'm saying. So I have to say that you guys, it's like I don't know what's the right.
Well, and the other thing is that, you know, we do vote on term extensions and people can decide at any time to exit the board.
It's a 3-year term and
Until you write a letter
until you
requesting
resign
your
at whatever
resignation.
point.
of
So
Right,
whatever.
until there's a written submission.
Like, so you're like, well,
Yeah.
why this month?
if you have a plan that you want to
So-
transition out, like,
Yeah,
I would make that known and let's work on a succession and transition plan for that. So we can, happy to make that
Mhm.
shared
take
information
that
and
then.
just
Let's
and
aim
do
for
that,
a
so.
6-month exit. it gives us plenty of time for getting things up and running, getting it streamlined, getting the next treasurer in, but knowing the pieces they need to know. But I don't find myself, it's another 2 years and you're like, wait, it's been good, but I didn't really mean to be there for 9 years.
Yeah.
Right, you're sitting there going, right? You're like, yeah, I didn't really need 9 years. I'm here.
And did we have any further discussion about other candidates, or do we know?
I mean, so when you're talking about succession planning, right? Like, so are we pulling somebody off finance committee, into that role, or is a current board member interested in that role of treasurer? I mean, I'm looking at AJ on here.
We're looking at on Zoom, okay.
I'm concentrating, I'm listening.
Not beyond coming in or good, right? But Kevin's got his little niche too, right? Our legal side of stuff. But if there's any interest to jump into that role, then let us know, because if not, then we'll need to fill that position.
Yeah, I think
Succession planning. Like, don't touch
yeah. No, I mean, I think it'd be good, maybe, number one, for me just to have a conversation with Philip, understand, what the I guess the expectations are of the position and what's he doing on a monthly basis, and number one, making sure that I have the skill set for what he's actually doing, because I have not prepared his reports with him. I'm no stranger to that information from the business side of it. So I just need to understand how deep, Philip's getting into it with the line items as far as the reconciliation and all that stuff. That's certainly, that's not my area of expertise. But yeah, I'd be certainly open to a conversation with Philip, and then maybe some finance committee meetings. I think the board has known that past 6 months been a little bit of a struggle for me, from my business side, because we're transitioning our business this entire year. So I'm hoping that this year was that, and I'm over that hurdle. So instead of being in my office chair at 5:30 in the morning, I can, work on financials for IMO at 5:30 in the morning, right?
I
So
think there's some bit going on with how we're managing that stuff right now, and if there is an opportunity to, make a transition start to happen, now would be a good time as we look to bring in maybe some external support for this role, or for the financial side, that somebody on the board could be part of that and understand really what is going to be the need from the treasurer position going forward. 5 to 7 years ago, it was much more involved than it was in the last couple of years, and hopefully it doesn't revert back to needing to be a more involved position, but it needs to be a check and balance on
that are going on right now. There's a lot that's like, I would be, if I was to stay on extended time as treasurer, we would still be figuring out what does that look like for where it is now. When it comes to doing numbers, it has a lot to do with the individual who's, it's just like most jobs, right? Like the person who's in the trenches, who's doing it, drives a lot. And then the people who are overseeing are looking to say, does this make sense? Are we catching the things that we need to? Are we being informed?
We're going to bathe tomorrow night after the park, because you're going to be very sweaty tomorrow.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. So with that is, whether for you, AJ, whoever comes in, that's that side of figuring out, well, how do you stay on top? You did something like we were talking about with going with the third party. They would have more canned reports. Here's how their recommendations and guidance is, which I think is also a good time to be transitioning, because it would be new to me as much as new to someone else. So I think you find, AJ, that your familiarity with numbers in a lot of ways sets you up, not being overwhelmed looking at a spreadsheet isn't as an important part of being a treasurer, at least for an organization like this one. I was not in the details. So if you're like, help me close, I'm like, I haven't done a journal entry in our system or seen them. Like, I actually haven't done that at work in a long time either. I believe in delegating.
That's gonna be amazing. Can't wait.
yeah, I would just say, I'll make sure that I'm in tune with the conversations that we're looking at with the, the third party, and make sure that I'm obviously, looped in there. And then I can have a separate conversation with, Philip or Heather. Yeah. For sure.
So do we want to look for just a 6-month extension and then you moving from treasurer to board member for that time period through the transition? Or are you, what do you think?
I think it's probably easier to say, with the way that our bylaws are written, send me for 6 months and you get there. It's still kind of done because that's 3 terms.
Right.
I mean, I guess you can do, so it might be easier to say, well,
What is
extend for the
policy?
3
3
years,
years.
but.
It's a
Right.
3-year term.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
it's,
3-year term.
and it's
That's not-
separate from his position as treasurer, right? Like an
Right.
office that we fill at the beginning of the year. So I would make a motion to appoint Philip to a new 3-year term, and he'll resign when he resigns, but
We get to keep your security deposit if you leave.
Yeah.
yeah, and then upon a resignation, his successor would be appointed for the balance of his term. So it would
Okay.
be,
For the treasurer role.
well, for your
Oh.
3-year term.
Through 3 years.
Yeah, 'cause we elect officers on an annual basis, and
Yeah.
the terms are 3-year terms.
Kind of unrelated.
But at any point, then you can say, okay, we are making a change of officers, though. You can do that at any
Philip
point,
can
right?
resign as an officer anytime, and the board can take action to remove an officer. So,
Right, and instate an officer, so,
Mhm.
yeah. Even though we have the annual process in which we do it just
Right.
for purposes of,
Right.
confirming it for the
Mhm.
year, yeah.
mhm.
I'd second,
There we
yeah,
go.
I'll second that motion.
Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
okay.
Have abstain from voting on that one.
It's not.
Unanimous?
Both like.
Unanimous.
Okay, unanimous. Typing it as such.
I didn't say aye. She's on here. She's like, oh, we talked about this, Philip.
His phone's blowing up with
So I
text.
was like, oh my God,
Uh-huh.
I just don't want to be like, and there was 3 more years. I'm like, it doesn't need to be 3. So like, I always gotta say something.
Yeah.
All righty. Heather, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so we're gonna start with the construction update. I think we are nearing the end. I just put through for the very first time the last 2 pay apps, which I think are the last 2 pay apps. And I think I did them correctly. So I have Justin from Building Hope. He's been kind of coaching me through some of that. So hopefully we'll close that out soon and then see what our contingency is from there. You may have noticed on the notes, I just kind of put some of the things that were done since the last time we met. Tito is doing an excellent job of maintaining the grass, trying to make sure it stays stays green and not brown after the switch box messing up before. So hopefully everything will close out within the next week or so, and then we can come to the table and kind of talk about the contingency that was left over. Which then I'll just jump down a little bit as far as the portables and the science lab. I'm gonna keep saying, I think we need to hold off until we see what our contingency is on from the Fuller's Cross project, and kind of go from there, would be my recommendation until we get everything straight for that. I think Kathy and Jared are both on here, so I wanted them to share a little bit about what's going on at both buildings. So if one of you all will.
Hi guys, I won't say much today because my wonderful APs are going to give you quite a lot of information on primary, but we are getting to the end of progress monitoring 1 testing right now, which is a good thing. We'll be happy to have that done. And we had a primary open house recently, and that was really well attended. I think the APs will talk about that. Everything seems to be going well, getting into a nice groove. And it's just lovely to see all those lovely faces every day. So that's all I have to tell you.
Thank you, Kathy. I have a few notes jotted down on my phone just to make sure I'm kind of capturing some of the great things that's happening in the high school building. I did want to acknowledge last night, our volleyball team won its first ever game in its second season. So that was exciting. I was there. I got a chance to run the scoreboard, which was cool. I felt like I was kind of part of the game. Shout out to Amber Boaz and our garden committee. They did a fantastic job this weekend coming and cleaning up some of the overgrown areas in the front of our campus and also in our back garden area. It looks fantastic. So thank you so much for Amber and that team for coming out and doing such a great job. We did well on our fast PM1 for high school. All of our 9th graders and 10th graders, with the exception of one that still has to do a makeup, have taken the test. Our averages again this year were higher than the state and district. So excited to see that our students are kind of maintaining that level of excellence when it comes to state testing. I'm going to be implementing this year something new. Created a principals advisory council, which will include a group of high school students. They've submitted an application, and I'm going to meet with them at least once a month, possibly more often, to get some student voice with regards to what are some of the things that are really working well that we want to highlight. What are some of the things from the student's perspective that maybe we should look to change, and really just kind of get a feel for how things are going from the student's perspective, and had some pretty good interest. Not as much interest in our underclassmen, so trying to encourage some of our freshmen and sophomores to get a little bit more involved. But I'm excited to have a chance to sit down with our students and hear from them and get some feedback on how they're experiencing this year, some of the changes to so some of our policies and how those things are going. And then last, I just wanted to highlight, I've had more opportunity this year to visit classrooms than I did last year, which I'm so thankful for. That's really where I want to spend the bulk of my time as much as possible. And so I had a chance yesterday to visit our world religions class, and the students in there had been tasked with writing their own creation myth and presenting it to the class. And so I had a chance to sit through, I think, 3 student presentations. They were all very different, but I was blown away by their creativity, by just the depth of their thoughts into like all of the different pieces that go into a creation story. And it was really neat to see how the students were encouraging one another and genuinely excited to hear from their classmates. And it was fantastic. But one of the best experiences I've had so far this year with visiting classes. And so shout out to Mr. Jesse, who's our world religions teacher, one of our social studies teachers. Those kids did a fantastic job. And I'm really excited to continue to visit classrooms and see all the other amazing things happening in our classrooms every day.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Kat.
As far as the wordsmith team, I'm gonna talk a little bit, but if you all want to pipe up, I know they just had their last meeting on September the 5th, and I know John is gonna compile all of the work group's notes and create a master document, and then they have their next meeting on September the 28th. I was not in those meetings, so I don't know the progression of those, but I'm anxious to see what they produce. I don't know if there's anything you want to share on that, or
Who was present from staff? Was there anybody like from staff that was, what did
I
Lachey
think
go,
so.
or?
I do.
Yeah,
think-
Lachey and I were there from the staff.
I was there.
Yep, and it's
Okay.
and then we had some lovely parents there. We had Shareem. We had Miss Denise was there. So we, just like Heather said, we looked at the staff agreements we had. We looked at the notes from the meeting we had in May. We looked at some other just kind of agreements and communication tools that John shared. And we kind of talked about, what this document was. I think that was a really important question that everybody on the team had. and to make sure that we're thinking really long-term about the vision for this document, that, you know, as new families join us, as we continue to grow as a community, it's really going to set the foundation for how we're going to communicate moving forward. And so then we broke into teams and we all looked at the documents. Alicia was there, and each team kind of highlighted like their non-negotiables. So maybe it was, you know, the treating each other with respect and kindness. Like that's something the team felt strongly everybody has to have, right? Or the transparent communication. So every team did that together. And then we came back, and John is going to put all those notes together. So then in our next meeting, we can kind of look at all of that together. And then we do want to start with that wordsmith, you know, not to get too cute and fancy, but we do want to make these statements like memorable, so that people are able to use them as they're working together and collaborating. And then we do want to also have a meeting about how we would want this to be used in our community, so that when they're shared, we kind of have that plan for it. Alicia, I don't know, Alicia, do you want to add anything else?
Nope, I think you did a great job covering it.
Okay, thanks.
So much. All right. So then we get into all of the lovely policy updates that have come through since our last meeting. So I'm just gonna briefly touch on some of those, and then you may see that I highlighted in yellow things that is the recommendation from our law firm to have into place. And so next month we'll go through that. You know, we are supposed to have, let's see, I'm sorry. The student legal name was supposed to be in place. It became effective August 22nd. We've already taken care of that. We already sent home forms to families who their child chooses to use a different name, and make sure that that was on record. So that has been taken care of. There are just a few things that we need to add to our employee handbook, and those are some of the things highlighted in yellow. So I'll bring that back next month. The use of the restroom for student and staff, we already have a policy that was put in place in January. The only thing that we'll need to do is add that to the employee handbook, but the policy is already in place. Then same thing with the new rule on the parental, ensuring that there's a healthy and safe environment, and that we our school won't be used as an adult live performance place, those kind of things. So we'll bring that back at the next. I know. As I'm reading some of these, I'm not saying I agree with them. It's just the law.
Or all the things that you're referencing are coming from the state.
Yes,
Yes, parental.
yes,
Yes.
right.
Just to be clear.
Yes. There is a rule in there. It's not really an adoption of policy, but it talks about for students that's graduating and obtaining certain scores on their SAT or ACT, and the changes with that. The biggest thing of that is just letting our high school students know what that change is. So that's something that we'll make sure that Cindy is sharing out at the high school level, but there's not really a policy that needs to be in place for that. There's also no policy, but the rule that kind of goes with one of the others is that we will not teach sexual orientation or gender identity to pre-K through 8th grade, and then only appropriate for 9 through 12. And so that really isn't a policy, that's just the law, which ties in, like I said, to some of the other ones that we have to create.
But you're saying we need to put that language in the employee handbook
Yes.
to comply with that law?
Yes, so that'll be the next month. It talks about the requirement that 1 year before a student reaches the majority age of 18, that they have to be informed of self-determination and legal rights. And then also must include ways that they're protected under FERPA. So again, that's not really a adoption of a policy. It's just making sure students are aware and families are aware of that. And then you have there's one here that we'll have to have in a policy on, is an amendment that requires school districts to have underage waiver policy and procedures for students aged 16 and 17 to take the official GED test. when conditions are not met. So I have asked if a sample policy would be sent, so I would know what that would look like. Then it talks about students with math deficiencies, and that we have to have a plan in place for those students. So it's not a policy, but that goes along with our MTSS. So we'll put that in our system, just ensure that we are targeting students that fall in below the 10% percentile for math. And so we'll make sure that that is. So as I said, that's just some highlights of that. Some things we've already taken care of. Some is going to be as simple as just adding the language to our employee handbook, but there are a couple that will require a policy to be put in place. One of the things I have spent some time doing, I've been trying to pull all of our policies together, going off of other people's, drives and stuff like that, trying to pull them so we have them all centrally located. So I am going through that. So if I find that we already have something similar, then I'll come back. So that's kind of the policies in place, and I'll definitely get with you, Kevin, that we can sit down and look through some of those. I'm sure we have them. Any questions about those? As far as the operational curriculum, so as you know, I've been spending a lot of time with finance, and I know Lily is on here, and I have to do a shout out to her. We wouldn't have made it without Lily the last few weeks. So I know we'll talk a little bit during the finance portion of that, but so that's kind of where we've been spending a lot of our time. But as far as action plan, so high school, you can tell they've already talked about their progress monitoring one. So the first one for us was closing the gap, especially with our ESE students. So as soon as we wrap up and get progress monitoring one data out, I'll sit down with our team and we'll start pulling that out to look at our ESE students and our MTSS students, and then determining next steps. Tier 1. So we met with as an admin team and kind of broke apart our action plan and divvied up who was going to be responsible for what. And I know, so lesson studies have already been started at the upper and lower L. And then middle school and high school have decided that their focus was going to be on study guides. Of course, science is a focus school-wide. So that those committees are already working. As far as the community portion, I've got, I received 6 responses from parents interested in that the Montessori parent training. So I'm getting ready to put out a survey to our staff, and then my goal is to have the first meeting by the end of this month or the 1st of October, so we can start looking at that Montessori training. Of course, restorative justice is still, that was another part of our plan, and our APs are doing an excellent job of practicing those circles and doing that piece of it. We did identify that we really want to work with someone, and I think Kathy had found a couple people, or Jared one, that could come in and provide some training on Montessori and behavior. So that is something that we're going to work through and make sure as far as our goals, for our action planning goals. And I know we're going to do the deep dive into the lower L, so I didn't want to spend too much time on that part, but that's just kind of a brief update on our goals and where we're at according to our action plan. Any questions on that?
Okay, so we're going to turn over to the APs. Okay, let me make sure I've got that sharing enabled real quick.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you should be able to share, Eileen.
All right, let me make sure I have it up. All right, is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes.
Looks good.
Okay, perfect. I know we've done it for so many years, but I always just want to make sure that we're good to go. All right, so Nicole, Leanna, and I have all been working on this presentation. We are excited to kind of share with you a little bit about our IMO primary program. We all have kind of some different areas to highlight. So we're going to go through, start sharing. All right. So a lot of times when we have meetings, we start with quotes. This was one of our admin team's favorite quotes about the primary program and about this important time in child development. So I just wanted to share that with everybody today. The most important period of life is not the age of university studies, but the first one, the period from birth to the age of 6. For that is the time when a man's intelligence itself, his greatest implement, is being formed. And we know that to be true. Maria Montessori did a lot of observation, a lot of research, a lot of work with young children. It's where she started. And I think one of the greatest discoveries that she made was that this is the time of the absorbent mind. And when we say that, we mean that the child in this time is observing everything, all of their surroundings through the senses. So it's critical that we are creating an environment that allows them to flourish, based on that finding. That's why our Montessori environments that we're going to talk about are so important, and the work that all of our teachers do is critical. So as students are taking in everything, they're taking in their environment, they're really learning for the first time kind of how to be in a community, the role that they play. So these environments that we create, they're supposed to encourage exploration, discovery. That's through the Montessori materials that we have, our beautiful shelves that we have in our classrooms. And then it's through the self-directed learning. So it is small lessons that students are receiving, and then they're accessing the materials on the shelf that they're using. And that's when we know that the real learning is occurring through that hands-on learning. So the work that's done in the primary program, it promotes independent thinking, independent action. I think that's truly one of the most important work that's happening during the primary time, is just the independence. As we always say, we don't want to help students with something they can do themselves, so we really allow for that independence. The critical thinking, and then of course we'll talk about tonight the social emotional and the intellectual intelligence and growth that's happening during this time. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was able to meet our primary team. We have truly an incredible team of teachers. We have an incredible group in the front office. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows who everybody is. So we'll start with our front office staff. We have Miss Hilda, she's our primary director, and then Kiana is our registrar up to 3rd grade. We have our Dolly classroom with Miss Sowney, Veronica, and Luce. In O'Keefe, we have Julia, Monique, and Anna. In Picasso, we have Shareem, Sandra, and Nilly Nez. In Matisse, we have Heather, Chloe, and Maria. In Van Gogh, we have Danielle, Tatiana, and Glory. And our new classrooms, which we're very excited to talk about tonight. In Casat, we have Rachel, Emily, and Stephanie. And in Kala, we have Tilly, Phaedra, and Shayla. So we are very thankful to have truly a fantastic group of educators in our primary classrooms. And we absolutely appreciate the incredible hard work that they do every single day. So we wanted to look at primary kind of by the numbers to give you, a full picture. So we now have 7 classrooms in our Montessori classrooms. One of the cornerstones is that they're all multi-age classrooms. So in all of these classrooms, we have students who are in our pre-K 3 program are 3-year-olds. We have our VPK program, and then we also have our kindergarten. And in these classrooms, you saw there's 3 adults. So we have a teacher assistant, we have a VPK teacher, and we have a kindergarten teacher. And about 25 to 32 students in each class, just depending on the spacing. Some classes allow for more, some classes there's a little bit less, but all multi-age and all with our 3 adults. So we want to really highlight Kahlo and Casat. These are our 2 new primary classrooms that are in the NPR. We just truly, I think, cannot say enough about our wonderful primary staff who worked so hard over the summer to create absolutely beautiful learning environments. And it really did even begin with our wonderful custodian team helping us clean out the NPR. We had community members come and help us put things together. We were so fortunate to find one of our primary staff members, family member is in construction, and they were able to build the shelves that you see in these pictures, the tables in the classroom, and it really came together to create such a beautiful learning environment for our students. So it was ready, before the first day of school for Meet the Teacher. It looked beautiful. We really just want to credit the passion, the creativity, the flexibility. All of that was on display. And if we always say to our staff members, if you haven't been in these rooms, we highly encourage you just to go see the learning environment, to see the work, to see the community that's being built. So we are, again, just incredibly grateful for everyone who helped to contribute to making these learning environments the way that they are today. And then I want to talk a little bit about the beginning of the year. So we did start with staggered entry. So what that meant was that our kindergartners came on the first day of school. The second day of school was our VPK, or pre-K 4. And then the third day was our pre-K 3 students. And our primary team spoke about how well this process went. It really allowed for orientation each day. The beauty of having our kindergartners come back is they're familiar with these learning environments. They quickly become leaders and they thrive in this environment, so that as the other students come back, the kindergarten students are usually off and running. I remember when I was in the classroom, students come back and they are ready to work. And that's such a beautiful thing that we see in our Montessori environments. So with that staggered entry, the teachers had the time to orient kindergarten students, to welcome the VPK students, our 3-year-olds who moved up, and then of course to welcome our new 3-year-olds. And that we also feel like that helped with the normalization process. Leanna is going to talk about that a little bit more. Kathy already spoke about our very well attended open house. And that was a few weeks ago. All the teachers were thrilled to see all the parents that came out. There's wonderful presentations. I do want to just put in there that our lower L and upper L open houses are next week. They are wonderful times to go and visit the classroom, to see where the children go every day, and just to learn a little more about the structure of the day, the expectations of the classroom. And our classrooms are just continuing to build community, whether that's through circles, whether that's through, having a meal together, but they're building community, and we truly feel like primary is off to a wonderful start. It's always a beautiful place to be. It's wonderful to see our students and then our staff working so hard. And now I'm going to turn it over to Leanna. She's going to share a little bit more.
Good evening, everybody. So normalization is a process that occurs as students become engaged with the materials and become familiar with them, and the class works in a harmonious state. Our primary teachers observed this happening very quickly this year, and we believe that that's through intentional time spent on routines and through, practicing grace and courtesy. So that's a really great thing that's happening right now. Now, Eileen, I'm going to need you to navigate for me. So I know many of you have heard of Practical Life, and this is probably a favorite for a lot of students. I can say that my younger child misses having Practical Life now that she's in first grade. But Practical Life is essential to the primary classroom. It's based on grace and courtesy, and students learn to become active members of their classroom community by caring for themselves, caring for others, caring for the environment. And for example, the students can be seen cleaning up after lunch, restoring the environment back to after work cycle. So you'll see students setting up the table and learning other skills that the teachers will teach them, such as pouring, spooning, as I said, setting the table. There's a lot of care for the animals and plants within the classroom. I believe most of you have taken a tour of primary, you see that there's a lot of plants and animals. So it's really lovely to see that these students are learning these practical skills on the daily. And these activities seem very simple, but it improves the students' concentration and focus, and even importantly, their control and movement, along with preparing them to read from moving as they move from left to right. So that's practical life. Peace education. The three main parts of peace education at the primary level are communication, vocabulary, and the peace table. So with peace education, it's a lot about helping students to learn how to communicate what their needs are. And this begins with first expanding their vocabularies. A lot of young children will first come to us and they lack the specific language that they need in expressing their needs or their feelings. A lot of them will come with just basic words such as I'm mad or I'm sad, but as the teachers work with them through various strategies, they're equipping the students with the language that they need. So they'll end up learning things such as I'm frustrated, or I'm excited, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, to clearly express how they are feeling in that moment. All of the primary classrooms have a designated peace area, and there's an example of one in the photo. In this designated area, they'll find books, they'll find soft seating, some pillows, or maybe even some blankets, and some items to help them find some calm or peace. And that could be a fidget item or some sort of soft toy. The students are encouraged to use this space when they're feeling or having big feelings or feeling a bit overwhelmed. So this space is designated for that specifically. There's also the peace table, and the students will utilize the peace table when they need to problem solve with another peer. They'll come to the table and they'll have what's called the peace ceremony with the use of the peace rose, and it gives students the opportunity to share how they're feeling and come to a resolution. So they're coming to that resolution together and collaboratively, and this also lays the foundation for the restorative practices that we use and practice throughout the other levels. And off to Nicole.
I just find it very ironic that the entire board meeting, my dog has been quiet and then decided to bark when I'm about to talk. So hello, everybody. I'm going to discuss student growth with you. We really focus on the whole child, and there's many ways that we do that and share that information out with families. First thing is observation. So the teachers are observing students in individual and small group lessons. In the primary building, a lot of the lessons that are given are done individually or in very, very small groups. So the teachers have the opportunity to really observe and see where the students are at that time. There is a work cycle component, but they are needing additional support from the TA, just to make sure that they're able to, stay focused and use the materials appropriately. We have observations are documented on Transparent Classroom. Report cards are provided quarterly and shared with the parents that way. We also offer parent conferences, an opportunity to touch base with parents and discuss the student's social, emotional, and academic growth. And while we don't focus too much on testing in Montessori, we do have to follow state expectations, and we implement the STAR assessment. The students actually in primary are taking that assessment this week. So some of them have taken it or will take it by the end of the week. So that is something that I'm going to talk about on the next page a little bit more. So the STAR assessment is done 3 times a year. The first two in September and January are more of a progress monitoring type look. In May is more of that, the one that you would consider like the FSA at the end of the school year, where you're kind of counting that. but the three different assessments that they can be given. The STAR Early Literacy are designed for students pre-K through 3. It consists of 27 questions and takes fewer than 15 minutes. Students that then move on to first grade, if they are received a certain score, they will take the STAR reading test, which is designed for K through 12th grade. And the test consists of 34 practice items and takes fewer than 30 minutes to complete. And then the STAR Math is designed for students in grades K through 12. It consists of 34 items and takes approximately 20 minutes. So we generally use this type of testing as just a data point for us. It's just part of, you know, the data that we're collecting through observations, what they're able to do with their follow-up work, and we just use this as a data point. Any students that need, you know, additional supports, you know, we'll be able to then provide it through MTSS, and then we, you know, have our tests at the end of the year in May, where that is more of a just a final, you know, recap of really where they're at academically going into first grade. Okay, we're looking forward to a great school year in primary. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Very well.
Thank you for that overview. So, okay. Let's see, was that it
Are
for?
they ready for the Q&A session now, right? Now we just drill them quickly.
I know. Were there any questions? Did you all have questions?
Questions for our primary team? No, great job,
More?
ladies. Thank you very
Thank
much. Yeah.
Yeah, I would, I guess, just ask the question around the 2 classrooms that we expanded with this year. And you touched on that a little bit, but you know, the setup in the multi-purpose room after the first month or so, you know, how's that working? Successful? What challenges do you guys see with that setup right now?
Well, I mean, I don't care to speak, and then one of them can step in because they know the more in depth than I do, but I will say, as far as space, it's beautiful, and this classrooms actually have a lot more room than a typical classroom. So I think the teachers really love it. Now, I will say it's been hard on them to do the state testing, because that was where they housed all the computers.
Yeah.
And so now we've had to pull computers and take them around and those kind of things. So that has been a challenge. We definitely moved a lot of things around out of the NPR, like, you know, your PE, all of that kind of stuff. But as far as the space itself, I think it's been great. So, I don't know.
And if I can add, one of the things I think we were most concerned about were the logistics of drop off and dismissal. And a stormy weather dismissal was the thing I was most dreading, but we had our first such dismissal last week. And we dismissed Callow and Cassatt through main campus Caroline, and really it went so smoothly. It was wonderful.
Great.
You know, and I think I keep bragging, but I have to go back to, it was all of the planning from the staff across the board. I mean, they have thought through everything, and I think that's why the transition has been so smooth. You know, I mean, I know Hilda and her staff are doing an excellent job, and haven't heard any complaints from parents, you know, that kind of thing.
How does that impact what we do with base in the mornings and afternoons too? Are they still able, do they still use that space at all, or no?
Well, we're using classrooms as contingencies when there's rain, so mostly Brett, they're outside, and then we just have a rotating schedule that Courtney set up for when it is raining, which classrooms are used. So it's working out fine, actually.
Cool.
This is our year with the tightest size, right? Because 8th, 7th, and 8th are still here, but next year they would move, giving us basically offset empty classroom.
Yeah, so those are things I think once we get the contingency back, that we need to sit down and talk as a board to say, you know, what does our plan look like as far as, do we move on with portables? I know today we looked at yurt. Being creative here. Yeah. They are adorable.
Love it.
I think Jared shared that FEMA sometimes gives grants for concrete auditoriums, and so we're like, well, we could do that. So yeah, we're trying to be creative with that. But then to have some honest conversations to say, okay, what do we do with those two? You know, do we have the funds to put portables out? If we don't, then what's our backup plan kind of thing? So.
I think it's even worth considering if the portables are the right option, right? Because even they're always kind of classified as temporary. We are like, well, is that a 5-year temporary? Is it a 7-year? If it's still
Right.
classified as temporary, are you just kicking the ball down the road? Is
Right.
there- This was the year that I think we were most worried about.
Right.
As we
Need
were
them,
coming into
right.
this, yeah, that we would need the extra space the
Right.
most. So
Yeah, and I think in the long term, Philip, the big concern was the logistics again around arrival and dismissal. And I do think last week's experience has made me feel a bit more optimistic about that. If we were to go with a plan to, you know, create classrooms for them on the main campus, wouldn't be the worst thing.
So at this point, we feel like we have homes for all of the things and the activities that used to be conducted in the.
I mean, is it best case? No. Like we had a perfect picture. Yeah, we would love to have more space but they're doing an excellent job with it. So.
And we still have art and music in their own space, which is
Right.
a potential option to have to disrupt those this year if we didn't as well. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we're not doing art on a cart this year, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, Bree, our yoga teacher, is on a cart, but she's been very gracious and flexible about that. And then, yeah, base, yoga, and testing are probably the 3 major inconveniences. But they're all being managed. Natalie and Stephen have been very diligent about making sure that the testing needs are met. So we're getting it done, like we always do.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Get on to finance.
thinking of tag team this with you a little
Okay.
bit there. I can start with some of our updates from last month's finance
Okay,
committee,
yeah, that'd be great.
and then kind of pass to you for more recent stuff.
Okay.
So one of the, let's see here, from last month, I know Heather forwarded you guys the Moody's downgrade of our credit rating, as we touched on last month. Immediate impact, or actually impact to us, is very minimal. It has more to do with our business partners who had the finance side of things. I thought what they wrote up was well written. I do think we understood the aspects of where they were. The conversations with them and reading their write up is the same thing we've been talking about all year. Cash on hand has been one of our challenges, because we're spending, so we can get reimbursed. But then if we don't spend, we don't get reimbursed, which means we aren't able to offer the programs that those grants afford. It's been a stressful cycle all year, and that was one of the things that they moved into. And I think what caused them to start looking a little deeper was transition. They didn't know Patrice was retiring, and then Dave's transition at the same time made them go digging. But really, when they got into it, they're like, "This is cash on hand." That just this biggest concern. And that one, I was like, "Well, yeah, that is one of our headaches. That's one of our stress points." Let's see here. And overall, in our finance committee, we started talking about, Heather and team are leaning into understanding where the cash is, understanding what the details are, what are the processes, what are the things, meeting the conversations on portables, science center, that's one of the things we're watching closer. How do we, and that's why we're glad you're here, and why you are here is so that way there is the person who's keeping sight on the big picture and making sure there's a team that's on top of it. I stay with what I've said. 9 months going, I don't see critical flaws that are big headaches or cause me concern, but it, like always, like with your own personal finances, but paying attention to it, and you can end up in a bad spot. So I don't think we're heading into a bad spot, but we have to stay on top of it and have to stay with it. So with that, I was thinking I'll pass to you to kind of how you want to hash out, touch on what you are doing in the last few weeks, some of the challenges you've had and some of the opportunities.
Sure. So we don't have the August yet, so that's not due till the 20th. So we'll have that next month. We did have Mahesh, and he did resign about almost 2 weeks ago. So Lily and I and Stephen has helped out a lot, and Kathy and Jared have become finance experts. But we are getting it. Payroll is still being produced. So I have learned a lot about finance. We did interview, we had some candidates, but after researching, I think, my recommendation is going to be that we outsource for a short time to get everybody trained, all of us back up on our feet running, making sure we all know exactly the processes and the systems we want to put in place. So I did sign that contract tonight or today and sent it over, or agreement, I should say. It's something that if it doesn't work out, we can cancel. It's not like we're tied to anything. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be great. They provide a lot of other services that, down the road we can look at to possibly save money, payroll, the systems that we're using. So that's my next goal, is to say, okay, we currently use one system. What would it look like if we switched, and how much money would we save that way? Because ultimately our goal is to get it into the hands of our kids.
What is the group?
The group that we're gonna be using, Building Hope.
Using Building Hope.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
They talked to us for a long time about their back office services.
Yeah.
And I think we finally reached out to them. and was
Okay.
like, we need your help. And
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
I know when we looked at it in the past, we
Mhm.
were always like, well, that's kind of Dave's job.
Right.
Like we
If
got
we're paying
Dave,
for
we're
Dave,
good.
it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense
Yeah.
to also pay you
Right.
to do it, but.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
There's
Yep.
a lot of
Right.
wisdom to it. It takes away that restriction on one person, or right, that reliance as much. And being a single standalone finance person in an organization like this is hard. So how do you keep yourself up on
Right.
all the things you need to know? Easier to,
Yeah.
I like the idea.
Have been able to, I think we're down, I have to get verified, less than reimbursements from prior to me taking over is about 91,000. So we've been reimbursed up until that point. Just asking for verification to make sure that I've went through every piece of document for the last year, but that I didn't miss something. And then
What was the balance that you started with?
A day would indicate that it was around 300,000. So
We've gotten that down by 200.
yes, and so, but I have recently submitted close to 250 submissions
Of new stuff.
of new stuff.
Great.
Yes.
That's about where it was.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So just getting
Keep
caught
those
back up on that.
Found that grant road.
I know. So Lily, that was part of the things that she was going to help with, and she has been great, but she's also taken on a lot of other things. So like I said, Stephen had came in and he used some of his business background and helped as well. So we're all just pounding away. So I'm hoping that now my focus can shift back to, and as I said, I'm excited because I get my first lunch bunch tomorrow. So I'm excited to start working, meeting some kids and those kind of things. But yeah, do we have work to do? Absolutely. And we are going to put some processes in place. I'm actually going to meet with the staff tomorrow at both campuses, just to kind of go through the why behind some things, just so, because I feel like, I want to be transparent with them and just talk through that we are going to change some processes that may be a change, but I think ultimately in the end will be a lot smoother for everybody. And then as soon as I hear from Building Hope, hopefully we'll get that started and let them get in and train. They're going to start off by training Lily and then start writing processes down and then go from there.
Is there any, I can't remember Dave's title, I apologize, but from my understanding, he was on the organizational chart in his own realm and he had some other things that he was responsible for. So with us not replacing Mahesh and outsourcing part of it, I don't like the word outsourcing, but us bringing in Building Hope to support, are there any roles or responsibilities that haven't been filled that Dave was doing that other team members are picking up the slack? Or am I off base that he was doing anything outside of finance?
No, he was. So I had already restructured that to begin with. I had, so IT fell under Dave, operations like maintenance fell under Dave. HR, I took that over, so they all report to me now ultimately.
Okay.
So that wouldn't have to happen. And so this person, and again, our goal is ultimately to hire within, once we can get up on our feet and running, then that would be their sole responsibility is the business side of things. And I will say, I did have an opportunity besides Building Hope to reach out to another company and vetted them this morning. It was just more expensive, and I felt like we had a better relationship with Building Hope. And so at first we thought it was cheaper because we were looking at the contract and I was like, oh, that's so exciting. But then we read the email and it was more expensive. So Building Hope was not our only one that we looked at, but it worked out to be the cheapest. So I'm already also working with a consultant. So I've been sending her information so she can take a look at, she's a previous educator, so she knows what it takes to run a school, but also looking at the business side of it to say, is there something that we're missing, that maybe we're paying too many fees on something that we could, reduce down somewhere else. So that process has already been started as well.
I guess my second item, that this is probably my fault for not being at the past two board meetings, but from my understanding with the grant money, and maybe Philip, this is partly to you too, moving forward and next time we review the financials, but is the grant money, are we segmenting that out from our day-to-day operating expenses from a line items standpoint when we're looking at our reserves to understand that, hey, we have receivables of X of grant money, but that's not impacting our day-to-day, cash reserves for the expenses, and to understand what that amount is. Does that question make sense?
But it's like often ends up, it's not
Money.
as clear as that, right? Like some of the grant money might be, especially in the early days of COVID, it was for money that we spent 9 months ago and we can submit to get reimbursed for it. So it actually was just normal operating expenses. Now there's things, one of the clearer ones that stands out as a nice defined separate one is if we pay people for tutoring, we can submit for reimbursement of that tutoring. Now, we may have already had tutors anyways, but we may be doing more, the intent of the grant money is for us to be doing more tutoring and for it to be available to more students. So it gets really hard to, just the accounting and the number crunching and keeping track of it and bringing in all your receipts and the bank information already gets complicated. And then if you were to go in on top of that and say, how much of this would have been normal operations and how much wouldn't, you're like, well, I don't really have an answer because the grant money was there, we structured our school, right? We added that extra tutor, we added that extra teacher, the TA or whatever. And had we not had that grant money, we might not have added them this year, but maybe we still would have. And so it ends up being a much more, even though the question makes sense, I think the answer is that it's really hard to actually separate.
And I think that's what, to be honest, Heather has been working so hard to clarify over the last few months, is to really iron out what pool of money comes from what pool of money and how is that pool then spent, right? So I think that's been something, just digging into all of those financial pieces. She's really just tried to figure that out, and then hoping moving forward, right, working with Building Hope, they'll continue that process and just get us a little bit more clear cut, because I don't know that these ESSER grants are going to last forever, right? So we need to be able to operate a budget without the potential of the grant money being there, right? That's supplemental for us. So I think that's really important for us moving forward.
Yeah, that'll be a big part of next year's budget conversation. Is what is the revenue look like, and what does that then mean from a staffing, from a structure, from an overall perspective? I would say another part that makes grants particularly challenging is the requirement to spend it before you get it back. Well, our normal operations gets to operate on, you had this many students lined up with your FEFP dollars that flow in on the 15th and the 1st, and you get that money and you can get ahead just like you could in your own personal finances. And so then you've actually got a little bit of a buffer and you're still going to get that money in. But for grant money, it doesn't work that way. You didn't spend it, you don't get anything back in.
You don't
telling them
have it,
that
you
you're
can't spend it,
going to
yeah.
spend it won't get them to send you the dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that's great with the big cash flow headaches, is that you spend as much cash as you have, so you can then have covered it and get it. Yeah, that's been a pain point since the grant started. It's the curse of grants, right? You get one
Right.
side, the blessing is you get the dollars, but the curse is the accounting is a lot more complicated.
And that's something I really want to work on, once we get, everything up and going, is that we already start talking about budget in January and February. So, it's easier for me to say, okay, let's go off of what, even if it's an increase, we don't know that for sure. But here's our budget. If we get more, great, but if we don't, we're prepared for this. Because right now, ESSER is gonna run out, for this next year. So we've got to be able to plan for that up front. And so Alicia's been doing a lot of behind the scenes as well, of looking at just salaries and compiling all of that data together, because that was, a lot of different places. So she's worked really hard about getting that, so then we can start having those conversations in January.
Yeah, I mean, some years we did really well. We would do like a 5-year plan, 3 to 5 year plan in January, usually, and then stretch that out to monthly by February, March,
Okay.
getting into the details.
Yeah.
By the time we got into April, we were really getting a pretty solid budget, which could then even be polished. And it's always been a little bit of a balance of how involved. I remember years ago, some very rather painful board meetings that ran till midnight, where the board was all in on the details, and I think all of us had interest in getting away from that.
Right.
But there's still always finding that right balance between getting enough people involved in the conversation to make sure it's happening. But yeah, starting in January really is the right time frame.
I guess I appreciate the explanation. The one thing I'd add on that is, and I don't know if this is possible, but it would be nice when we start working on the budget to have a budget that's pure, meaning, no grant money and what it looks like. And then a budget that has the grant money baked in, because it gives us a best case, worst case scenario and something in between. And then, I mean, obviously, this is a few months off, but something to think about, knowing that it's a fluid situation with the reimbursements. So that's all. For my little Zoom, sorry. Thank you.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Anything else finance wise? Okay, Sarah, you here for PTO update?
Hey, I had to get myself unmuted. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Good. All right. So it is a busy month, like always. We had our UNO tournament this last Friday. It was really well attended. We had over 55 players, so that was a lot of fun. And then our biggest announcement is our Fall Fest. It's right around the corner. That's going to be September 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's at Great Scott's Farm, which was formerly Long and Scott's Farm. So same place, just a rebrand. So don't go to a different place. So it's going to be really fun. We have Kona Ice food truck confirmed. We have a barbecue truck, and then we also have the pizza truck as well. So really fun. We'll be there selling shirts, doing things. The safety patrol will be there doing waters, face painting, fairy hair. And then you can pre-purchase your tickets or just purchase them day of. For the Harvest the Love campaign, we are just getting funds to support every IMO family that is interested in coming to the Fall Fest. Last year, we were able to let anybody who wanted to go to the Fall Fest come free of charge. They just emailed us. We made it really easy this year. There's a form to fill out. And then just as a fun fact, with all the funds we were able to get last year, we had enough money left over to fund extra tickets to prom, the Someone Special Dance, and Island H2O. So this one little giving campaign from our community really went a long way. And so we made sure to spend it all and make sure a lot of families were able to come. So that's fantastic. we're getting ready to announce our very first ever color run, which is this year's walkathon. So get excited. That's going to be Saturday, October 21st. So we're going to have a 200-meter dash for our little ones, a 3K, 5K, and a 10K. And it's going to be our big fundraiser for athletics. So we're hoping to raise about $20,000 to go for uniforms, field and gym rentals, coaching fees, and more. So I think it's going to be a really great event, very similar to the walkathon, but with a lot more color and bang. And then we're also just PTO, we're putting together a list of IMO family businesses that are looking to support events or the school or just promote their own business at events. So if you know a business or if you have a business and you are interested in getting on that list, just send me an email at president@PTO Owls. That way we can connect about what events would look good for, that would make sense for both of us. So they can even sponsor the upcoming color run or the spring arts festival. Our next in-person event is a spirit night from September 27th at Playa Pizza. And then we're doing our first parent connect of the year, which if you guys aren't familiar with that, that's just a low-key hangout, everyone get together, grab a babysitter, and meet other IMO families. And then our next PTO meeting is going to be October 3rd on Google Meetings. We've navigated away from Zoom, so we're going to send out our new Google Meeting link. So stay tuned. That's it for me.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
Is the color run going to be on campus? Just curious.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask that, yeah.
Yeah, the color run is going to be on main campus. We're actually going to use it as like a launch of the soccer field. So we're hoping that I-9 will help us sponsor it. So we're in talks with them. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And it's like that fun, colorful dye that you see at like holy festivals and stuff. So bring white clothes, prepare to get messy.
Love it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun.
I was wondering about that with the change of the name for the Fall Fest too. I
Yeah.
was like, wait, is that the place?
Yeah.
All right. We are in our committee updates period. So any committee updates?
Finance committee is going to move to the third Wednesday at lunchtime.
Okay.
I don't know if that's better for you, Kevin.
I'm not in Carline then.
Yeah, that was one of the parts I was like, yeah, most people often are like, Carline makes it a challenge. I was like, come on, my own schedule has changed and the reasons for 8 a.m. on Tuesdays no longer fit well. It's going to create challenges on mine too. So
What is the time? You said the third week of the month on
the third Wednesday of the month at noon.
at noon, at 12 noon. And this is updated on the calendar currently?
Yes, it is.
Okay, lovely.
Although next week I'm traveling for work, so we move it to Tuesday. Okay, I'll leave it at lunchtime, but I'll bump it up to Tuesday. I'll have the calendar now. Yeah, as I was sending the invites and the updates on it, I was like, oh, and I just took the work.
That's how it always works out. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Feel free to add your notes as you go. I always remind you.
No, I'm like, down. I'll get that.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I added some information to the committee area. So since we last met, we got clarity on direction for an annual giving campaign. So just to kind of refresh the group here. So for IMO, the focus is around outside spaces. So shade, a shed for PE, and the third one is bleachers. So that's the main campus, and then high school was flexible space or seating areas in the hallways. So and then after our meeting, I got connected to Suzanne through IMHS's PTO. She formerly worked at a private high school in marketing, so she's been amazing. So we've actually met several times over this past month to just come up with an internal document that I've been emailing with Heather and the principals around, and this is just like internal, messaging of what we would share and how we would kind of lay it out. So that's the PDF. And so let me open up mine over here so you guys can see that. So anyway, so we already have parents that donate their time. So this is a call to also give their financial gifts if they can. And so it's a collaboration, as we've discussed in past meetings, between board of directors and the PTO. And so I include some of the verbiage you had sent me, Kristen, from Give a Latte from 2019. So it talks about, the less funding that we have when you include capital outlay funding, and that we don't participate in door-to-door sales. So this is part of that. So our big goal for both campuses is $50,000. And so $30K for Beat the Heat, for the IMO shade, bleachers, storage, and then Embrace the Space is the campaign for IMHS for their soft seating. And so that's another $20K. So kind of went off of what was in alignment of the last time we did we called it Plan Giving, Give a Latte. In discussion with Suzanne, we expanded it to be one time or monthly. I just wanted to say that this first pass of fundraising of the annual giving is more inclusive, right? We're going for lower to mid-level giving. And so, we start to have a rhythm of doing this every year, high participation, and, things come to fruition and parents can see it happen, right? So that's the idea. So we've got little tiers and descriptions. And then we also made I also linked like a mock-up of using a tool called Zephy that the PTO uses already. So it's a free platform. And so how they make their money is at the end, it's optional to give a donation to the site because they let nonprofits use the infrastructure, including running credit cards and all of the back end. So a little mock-up has been done, and I put that in there. You can see the draft giving campaign, right? And so we've exchanged, Heather and I have exchanged emails. So I think kind of where we're at is we need if we're where we're having some issues in our finance area, but we kind of need the banking information and kind of that back end support from the school side to get that piece finalized. We've already discussed. I have just a little video I found in our YouTube, but we've already talked about like involving the students and having a little video for each campaign. And you can see using this platform, you can easily share on social media, and it's got more visibility and tracking of how we're reaching our goal and how people can donate. So we made quite a bit of progress in kind of getting that to something tangible. I think we just kind of need just kind of see what happened with Giving Hope, and now that piece, getting that in alignment. When that's ready, we could get things I guess across the finish line.
Place to put the money.
Yeah.
Right.
So I also, sorry, I wanted to talk about the foundation, but I don't know if you wanted to add anything else. Okay, so I know you had mentioned the foundation, Kevin, not to put you on the spot, but like after looking at how other schools do it and checking out like public schools OCPS, they fall under OCPS's foundation. They kind of all roll up under, but I'm interested to hear a small discussion on our own foundation and like how we utilized in the past. And I'm thinking maybe it makes sense to roll up this fund there, or just kind of have a short discussion on that.
So this would be, this money then would go towards the foundation specifically. Is that what you're saying? Like this would not go towards, is that what you're mentioning?
Well, it's where do we kind of hold the money, and we are earmarking it for these things.
Right.
But if we get excess of that, or it's a funding place for like growth investment for the school.
From an accounting side of things, so Advent Health has a foundation as well. My team works some of it. We actually, from our taxes filing, it's a lot cleaner. Now, our school probably won't have this complexity. Fingers crossed we will at some point, but from a taxes perspective, it's a whole lot easier to flow everything into the foundation. Because it keeps it out of getting lost in all of your day-to-day operations. And so if sometimes you have filing where you have to come in, like something I was just dealing with, Florida State requires that you get grants above this amount, then you have to tell them if you've done any business with like China, North Korea, Cuba, that sort of thing. Well, because we run everything through the foundation, it's easy for us to say basically no, because go talk to the foundation. So for our same side with this school, if you run it through the foundation, you can still then, the foundation then is the one that gives you everything to the school.
Okay.
And then the foundation still does the tax filings and the reporting, but their books are a lot smaller because you don't have all the operations and payroll and all that other stuff going on inside of it. So when you come in to say, where did our money come from? Oh, it came from this event and this event and this event and this donation group and that donation group. So it doesn't change what you use the money for. It's really more of a back office accounting thing, but it can make it easier when you're dealing with your accountants and your lawyers and your IRS filings to run it through there.
So the question is do we have that account already currently set up, open, able, and who's listed on it, where they can access it? And
I believe the answer, well, the simple answer is yes.
Yes.
The answer to all of your details, we would have to.
yeah,
Put it
because
on
I
their
know that
site.
some of the other stuff, right, like to get that transitioned over to like Heather and who's on it for the other accounts has been a pain. So we need to isolate those books, right? Find out where they are, what is it with Wells? Is it with Seacoast? Where's the account?
Where's the account?
Right, specifically, so that we can then open this door to then have it funneled there. Now, of course, the Hope is gonna be able to help and support us on this,
Yeah.
absolutely. But we're still gonna need to locate that information. And I don't know if Brett would know it more so,
I
but.
think it's all in the same place. I mean, I sat with Patrice at some point and the foundation accounts are right there with the others. There's nothing there, I don't think. I mean,
Right,
I mean, my impression of one of the benefits of the foundation is they can retain funds over a period of time. If you give it to the school, they gotta spend it and drop into the general fund. It's less easy
Stand out.
for a donor to say, I want this to be spent on 5 years worth of, reselling a soccer field or whatever it might be, because it drops into the general fund and then it's subject to our budget and we have to appropriate it when we
Right.
have to appropriate it. It's with the foundation board, which is the same group of people, can meet it out as needed for specific purposes or make direct purchases of things. And I think the foundation already has its tax exempt status in place.
I think all of that's true from
And
what I
opening a bank
remember.
account is easy.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
a non-event. So
Yeah.
I think that there could be benefits to doing it. It's just one extra level of being cumbersome. If we're going to realize through a campaign is less than the amount necessary to buy the thing we intend to buy with that campaign, might not be worth the effort, but to have it, I mean, maybe it's a good practice just to get used to the idea of any donations flowing to the foundation and having the foundation having separate meetings probably at the same time as our regular meetings, but meetings to allocate the funds. You could take requests from staff or administration and then allocate the funds and make grants in according with those requests. So
that this board would then be responsible for determining how to allocate those funds in this
right,
Right.
because it serves.
set
I
of
think
funds.
each county in Florida has a direct support organization that is a foundation. I think every county has one that does exactly what we're talking about. They collect funds. They might have endowments, it could be earning interest income. And that's the only thing that gets spent off a particular fund or whatever it might be. And then those direct support organizations take requests from the various schools in the districts and then hand the money out one request at a time. They've got better reasons to do it probably than we do at the county level, but it's a very common model.
I think it's something we should absolutely do because I think it sets us on a path of where we
Yeah.
want to go and it keeps it clean and just,
I do see this as like a foundational level of revitalizing.
foundation of the
everything.
foundation.
Yeah, like, the
Yeah.
base level of kind of jump starting it, and then it could get more elevated, and
I don't think you have to hold off starting collection of money until you don't have to wait, don't give me anything until we get all this figured out. But I do think it's worth, when we went through all the stuff and we set up the foundation, and then we're like, oh wait, now we don't quite need it because of where we ended. But we're like, well, do we close it? We're like, no, it's still really, it's nice to have in our back pocket. We've got all this lined up. So it sounds like you're getting some good momentum going on it, on the fundraising side of things. And exactly what I would call that. You put the dollars there, it allows for your market, keeps it separate. Like there's a lot of organizational benefit as well, to the good accounting, the good management of the money. So don't lose your momentum because you're like, oh, I don't know where to put the dollars. They can start out going into something a huge tracking
Okay.
spreadsheet, but
I will say for a giving campaign like this, the marketing's awesome and it gets people excited. We should be doing things like this.
Yeah.
But kind of on the side of that, you know, I'd be interested in, as we discuss over the next few months what to do, but having more of a standing working capital reserve, maybe an operating reserve. You know, we got 45 days to worry about in our next testing date. And you know, I don't want to have a giant pile of cash in a foundation that's not helping us meet financial targets just for the day to day, especially with, you know, the financial cliffs associated with the ESSER grants and those things. So I don't want to get tunnel vision where every dollar of donation has to go to the foundation.
Okay.
I just need help probably locating where the foundation account is, because I've not seen it, but that doesn't mean that.
I know there's that screen you can pull up that shows your various accounts, and there was
I've got that, but I don't see
the
it.
combined schools, and then there was CASA and foundation. I'm pretty sure it was on there,
Okay.
but it may be a zero balance. It may have been just, it may have gone away.
When you say the screen, are you talking about Wells Fargo?
Yes.
Hmm. Okay.
Because I don't think we ever actively began funneling funds
Into it.
And
there,
It was our
so-
fundraising was still going
so
through school
does it-
pay, it was still going into
Right.
operation accounts. They're
So does it
both.
close if we don't do that? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe so many months without activity, right? It
Mhm.
might potentially close, and like Kevin says, we might need to just open up another one.
Money market, and then so I don't have access, Wells Fargo do not give me access to it.
I think it's like saying, I'm not sure that there's dollars in it.
Okay.
What you just read is the list that I would have expected you to see,
Yeah, no.
but I thought there was also a foundation, and it could be which human beings they've given access to. I don't know.
Yeah,
And that may be it.
that might, because that might not have been on the ask list when you were going through to get that access, because we didn't know about it, right? Like
Okay.
it wasn't
It is
on,
kind of-
so,
Yeah.
It's something else off of the side, too.
Here it is.
yeah. So let's put that on like the finance committee's next month's
Yeah.
to-do list.
Mhm.
It's just getting that set up so we have a place to
Yeah.
start moving that, and that way maybe she can really get started in, November or something, right?
Yeah,
I
what is
think
our-
it's up and running by November, because then you have the giving Tuesday, right?
I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
we wanted
should that be
to-
our goal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to get things ready to go. Actually wanted to get some money in there. It's always good to start a campaign with, hey, we already raised this amount.
Mhm.
And then the big push is Giving
Mhm.
Tuesday. After Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Okay.
We can all be the first to donate.
Yeah.
Yay.
I also have in there, my draft we talked about having like a subcommittee of people focused on
Mhm.
grants.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been put out there, and then Heather and I exchanged some emails yesterday. Yeah. About like, kind of the first thing is what do we, can contact the volunteers who are interested in grant writing, and then where to focus them, right? And right now the first focus is the van.
Mhm. That's where I think our first, and I'm hoping that, with talking about that I can find paperwork of where we bought the bus and see if we can potentially resell the bus.
Yeah.
So that may be some funds too, because we just don't have a driver. I mean, I've tried for 2 years and it's sitting out there, and I really think it would be beneficial to our both campuses to have at least a 12 passenger van that anybody can drive versus a bus that's sitting on the lots. So, yeah, but I've just got to find paperwork on that, and I haven't found it yet.
Is it in the bus?
It may be in the bus. Not gotten on the bus, because I'm afraid there's a creepy crawly in the bus. Somebody else is gonna have to go get on the bus to see.
There's no.
Jared,
I'd give it a say, Jared.
Jared, we just tasked you with a to-do list, for this coming up week. We need you to get on the bus. and check out things. And creepy crawlies.
Yeah.
The last time I was on the bus, it was pretty clean. But that was several months ago, so a lot could have changed between now and then.
That's your new assignment.
All right, I'll take care of that. No worries.
Okay.
Thank you. Paperwork of the bus, yeah.
So I think we just wanted to say as a team, then do we approve of, this concept of a grants committee and that being formalized? There's a write-up here that, outlines that, because again, one of our goals this year was to get a little bit more formalized and clear about the committees that we're having or not having, right? And so this would be something that would then move forward.
Absolutely. I don't think we need a vote for that. I think that's.
It's not a vote. I mean, we're just
Yeah,
acknowledging it and
acknowledging it,
saying,
yeah.
it's
That's what I
it's
was
good to
gonna
move
say.
forward.
Yeah.
You've done a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I do want to give a big shout out to Suzanne.
Yeah.
She's been an
And
awesome
Suzanne's
partner.
last name is?
Suzanne.
She's on the meeting.
Oh,
And
great.
Pam?
Yes. that's
Okay.
her name.
I'm
Big
saying
shout out to Suzanne.
Yeah.
She's been an
And
awesome
Suzanne.
partner.
She's on the meeting.
Oh,
And
great.
Pam?
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Suzanne. Thanks. Ooh, I lost it.
Sorry, I think my speaker is a little bit funny. Hi.
Suzanne, thanks. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
I
Suzanne.
lost
I think we're all good to,
Okay.
moving forward. That
So
sounds great.
I'll just wait to hear about the bank situation and then I'll reach out to those interested in joining the grant.
Do you all already have interested
I have
folks,
gotten
or
a
do we
list
need to
of
do a
interested
reach
folks
out, or?
From the PTO. They had known people.
Okay.
Sarah had known people that would be good contacts.
And I'm sure we can continue to use the PTO to market for
Subcommittees.
various committees, in terms of just spreading the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should
you know.
formally publish that we'll have a meeting so others can join, I guess, as well. I mean, I want to reach out to those, to invite them. But I think it'd be good to just.
Right. I think,
I'm sure
that
there's
was one of the things we talked about. Okay, who's in the committee, right? Who are the members?
Right.
Okay, are you now in this committee? This is what you're signing up for, right? And now we begin. You're part of the group, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So to that end, I just wanted to clarify and to state that at this time, I don't believe that we are going to have a communications committee formalized. We are having a wordsmith committee that is led by our administration team and is a community committee, I would call it, that is looking at some items that came up based on, things that took place last year and putting together some of these agreements and norms that we would expect all of our community to uphold. And we as the board are excited to see the work that comes out of that committee, and we would love to support that work. But I don't think that the board needs to drive the effort of the communication. I know it is in the big rocks, right, in terms of goals. So just for kind of clarity around it, we're here, we're happy to help, but the communication efforts, I think, are best positioned being led by administration in partnership with the community, right? So I don't feel the need to formalize anything further around that at this time. So is anyone feeling any differently, or I just kind of wanted to state that.
So one of the things that we've also talked about as an administrative team is I met with Stephen today about our website, and we're gonna revamp. So he had some great ideas, and then I'm gonna sit down with him and we're gonna talk about what we want that to look like and the purpose behind that. And then also our Facebook page, getting it back up to date and running. And I don't want it to be a page where like people can comment and all that kind of stuff, but to showcase. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping with the website being redesigned, making sure we're in compliance, first of all, but then also to showcase our social media page, and then what we put out on Parent Square, and then what's created for the parent training, and then what we're about. That if somebody was thinking about coming to our community, they would know what we were about and those sorts of things. But then also keeping everybody in the community informed of what's going on.
Right, and
So
I think
that is
that's
the
part of
effort
it,
for
right?
this
Is
year.
are we
Yes.
using all the vehicles that we have available to us to keep people informed, to be transparent, to be open about, hey, here's what's going on?
Right.
I think we have taken steps as a board to increase our transparency and visibility of the things that we're doing, and you clearly outline a lot of things. Board docs continue to reference all of that detail there. So I think it's really in the space of what you've already defined, Heather, in terms of that, and that wordsmith effort is part of that.
Absolutely.
So if that makes sense, then we'll just kind of continue on in that vein. So, and we can talk about those things here, bring them up as an agenda item. How are we doing? Do we, any communication topics? But I don't think it has to be a separate board committee. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
Good.
Anything, wrap up, Stacy?
Yeah, I would just say, that if there are members of the community that are, interested in being a part of the board, to reach out and touch base with either Kristen or myself. Feel free to grab a coffee or something, if that's something that you're interested in, because we will continue to have some succession planning going on, right? So, we realize we've got new community members now. We've got a new group of students and families that have now joined. So if there's interest there, then please reach out to us, ask us questions, join the board meetings, of course, right? Like that's the normal setup there. But just wanted to remind our community that is a place for impact if they're looking to have an impact on our school. So other than that, I think that thank you everybody for coming tonight. Thank you for everybody on Zoom with us, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you, APs.
Thank you.